Welcome to Excel Magic Trick number 866. If you want to download this workbook, click on the link below the video. In this video here, we want to talk about what to do if you have 1, 2, 3, 4 lookup values that you need to use to go look up a value on a different sheet. So right now we want to look up Solar World, M210, 240, PV 240, and return these 4 items. Now in this video, we're going to see a bunch of different situations that may arise and what different formulas you can use. Now the first thing is, if we look over here, we have different types of data. What if you want to return a number or you want to return a text item? You can use different formulas. Not only that, but if you have duplicates here in this data set, we don't have any duplicates, right? So for any Solar World, M210, PVP 240, there's no other record here. If there were duplicates, we'll see how to deal with that. Duplicates meaning we have this listed twice, but there's multiple items we need to return. All right, so in essence, here's our topic. It's for lookup values. We'll see a formula to return numbers when there are no duplicates. Then we'll see one that will return not numbers, like text when there are no duplicates. And then we'll see one for duplicates. All right, first situation, here's our 4 items. We want to return the min and the max. Now notice these are numbers. In that case, we can simply use the SUMIFS function. Now this trick comes from mattxu at YouTube and Bill, Mr. Excel Jelen. Now the cool thing about the SUMIFS is usually you do it for adding with multiple criteria. But if there are no duplicates for this record and you want to return numbers, man, SUMIFS beats all the rest. Let's go ahead and see how we do this. Now the SUMIFS function. Now we're going to need to tell it the sum range where it'll extract just a single min. And then we have 4 criteria range and criteria. Now we have 4 criteria, so we're going to have 4 criteria range. Now the thing about making a formula with arguments or any cell references between sheets, because some of these arguments are going to have to come from here, and some of them are going to come from here. Anytime you click on another sheet, all references will turn to sheet references, even the one on this sheet. So watch this. I'm going to skip over the sum range and the criteria by typing a comma. Now criteria 1, I know I'm going to need this, and I'm going to hit the F4, comma, criteria. No, that's from the other sheet, so I hit comma again, and then I'm going to get that, F4, comma, comma to get to criteria 3, F4, comma, comma to get criteria 4, boom, F4, close parentheses. Now, once I have created these references from this sheet, I'm going to go get all the other references or arguments for the SUMIFS from the other sheet. I'm going to go over here, the range that has the min, and actually probably would be helpful to watch the formula up here. Now, that says F2 to F12, but it's a relative cell reference, and we want that. Because on the other sheet, when we copy it over, we want the dancing ants to move to max and then to quality rating and code. All right, now I click right there. Criteria range 1 and F4. Criteria range 2, F4. Criteria range 3, F4, and then finally we have criteria range 4, and then F4. All right, so I'm going to Control Enter and copy this over. Now it's not going to work for text items, obviously. So we'll switch over and we'll learn a couple other methods to deal with text. But for the numbers, absolutely beautiful. Now let's test it. Let's go Sano, and then notice if here there is no match in record, so it returns a 0. So and we're going to go to M9240, SMA, and 220. So that's a matching one. That gives us the proper min and max. So in essence, 4-way lookup when there are no duplicates returning numbers, man, SUMIFS. Now if you really wanted to not show those zeros, you'd have to do something like if that whole thing equals 0. That's the logical test. Comma, then show me whatever you want. I'm going to put double quote, a null text string, which shows a blank. Otherwise, and then repeat. Control V. Repeat that SUMIFS, all right? And then we copy it over. All right, so that's absolutely beautiful SUMIFS trick from mattxu and Bill, Mr. Excel, Jelen, for looking up a number. But now let's see what to do if we want four-way lookup and we're looking up text and the SUMIFS up here. That SUMIFS only exists in 7 and 10, so we'll look at 3 other methods that will work in any version and for text. Now, probably the most efficient way to do four-way lookup is to actually come over and add an extra column. Now, in some cases, you can't add the extra column, and we'll look at some solutions for that. But adding an extra column, we just will join 1, 2, 3, 4 things together in a single cell, which will create a unique identifier that we can use in our lookup. Now, I'm going to join this, and I'm going to use the ampersand shift 7, double quote, some character in between. And I'm going to actually use this a lot. So I'm going to copy. Click there, Control V, click there, Control V, click there. Now that creates a single item that we can use as our lookup. And guess what? We chose to put it in the first column, so we can do a straight VLOOKUP over here. All right, so you ready? Equals VLOOKUP. Now the lookup value, F4, because I'm going to copy it to the side, Control V, F4, Control V, F4, Control V, F4. There's our value. If we highlight this and hit F9, you can see it created a perfect lookup value from 4 items into 1. Control Z. Table array, comma. I'm going to go ahead and go get that table all the way, including that first column, and hit the F4 key. And then I'm going to type, you can see up here, comma 6, comma 0, because we're doing an exact match. Enter. Now I want to copy it over and have the 6 change from 6, 7, 8. So I'm going to highlight this. I'm looking like I'm in A9, so I'm going to type the columns function, $A9 colon A9. Notice the dollars in front of the A, the first A, but not the second A. So it will increment a number. How many columns between A and A? 1. When this moves to B, it'll be 2. Now, that's not what we want. We don't want 1, 2, so I'm going to plus 5. Control Enter, and then copy it over. Now, this will run into the same problem if we were to come up and select something like this. So in 2000 and I'll do the 2007 method earlier. I'll do a formula that will work in all versions. The problem with earlier versions when you don't have if error is you have to actually run the lookup twice. So I'm going to say, is this an error? That just gives me a true or false, right? In the logical test, comma, if it's an error, what do I want? Something like double quote null text string, which shows a blank. Otherwise, Control V to paste the VLOOKUP again. Control Enter, and copy it over. Now when I change this to, we got it. And look at that. It's totally retrieving 4-way lookup, number or text. Now let's look at what happens if you can't have this extra column, which really is the way to go. Now, in essence, we're going to have to duplicate this extra column inside the formula. So the column will be in our formula instead of the spreadsheet. Now, I'm also going to use, I'm going to cheat. I'm going to copy this little thing right here. See, because that's our lookup value here in the lookup. And we're going to have to use that. Now, I'm going to use the index and match first, and then I'll show you a great other option with VLOOKUP and CHOOSE. We'll start with match. Now, match, if you look over here, our row is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So match will deliver the 5th row, and we'll throw it into the index function, which then can do a lookup based on the row number. So we'll say match. The lookup value is that right there. Now, comma. Watch this. I'm going to cheat. I'm always copying and pasting. Here, we don't have that column. But guess what? We can come over to this sheet right here and join it right in our formula for the lookup array. So I'm going to, you can kind of see up here, I'm going to highlight this. Right there, you can see it emerging, F4, and then Control V. That's that little ampersand. Oh, we're joining columns instead of individual cells. Highlight, F4, Control V. Highlight, F4, Control V. Highlight, F4. All right, and so in our, we have our lookup value right there. and then our lookup array, in essence. Now, check this out. Actually, let's enter this. This is an exact match, so I'm going to comma, and then for exact match, I'm going to put 0. It's an array formula, so when I hit enter, it shows value error. You need to do Control-Shift-Enter. That'll put the curly brackets in. Once you have concatenated columns, it's an array formula. Now, let's check this out. This is an individual item. I'm going to hit F9, right? Control-Z. But this little bit right here takes 4 columns and mashes them into one. So let's hit F9. Now notice in array syntax, you can see there's one item all mashed together, semicolon. Next item all mashed together, semicolon. Semicolon in array syntax means go down a row. So this, in essence, created a column, a single column of our mashed up values. All right, I'm going to click Escape. Now that will work all the way across. All we have to do is put that inside of index. So index, the array for index, I'm going to go over to the database, and we're going to start with our min. So I highlight that down there. You can see it emerging up here. I'm going to type comma, right? So relative cell references, so when we copy it over in that other sheet, it moves to max and then to quality rating, etc. I come to the end. That's a row number. Match is just delivering a row number, close parentheses. Remember, if I enter, it gives me value. I need to Control-Shift-Enter and then copy it over. So that formula will work in any version of Excel without that extra column. Now, another way to do this, and I'm going to copy, watch this. I'm going to really cheat a lot here. I'm going to copy that lookup value. I'm going to do Control-CC. That opens up the clipboard. And then I'm going to copy the concatenated columns, Control-C. Escape. So I have those loaded up here. Now, we're going to here use VLOOKUP and CHOOSE. So we'll try VLOOKUP. Lookup value will be our individual values from above. That's our 4 lookup values. All right, so there's our lookup value, comma, and now the table array. Now, we're going to have to do something here because we're not allowed to use that first column, and yet table array in VLOOKUP requires that the first column is the lookup column. So watch this. We're going to use the CHOOSE function. CHOOSE. CHOOSE, usually you put a 1, a 2, a 3, and it will pick amongst the items in its arguments. But what we're going to do is we want to mash 2 columns together. We want to mash our actual lookup column, which is all the one over here, and the min or the max column. So watch this. We're going to, in array syntax, curly bracket 1, comma 2, and curly bracket, we're going to type a 1 and a 2. By putting a 1 and a 2 in array syntax like this for index number, it will select them both at the same time and actually mash them together into one VLOOKUP table. All right, so the first value, that's this right here. Let me scroll down here a little bit. That's the first column. Remember, if we highlight this and hit F9 as we did just a second ago, it's all semicolon. So it's one column, right? Well, what do we need to do? Comma. And now we're going to go over and get the second column in the VLOOKUP table. So I click on Database, and it's min. And you can see it up here. It's a relative cell reference. I'm going to close parentheses. Now I'm going to finish this off with comma 2. And the cool thing about this is notice database F2, since the CHOOSE is going to mash 2 columns together, those are relative cell references. So when we copy this formula, the max will become the second column, and then the quality rating, and then the code. So all we need is a 2 there. We're also going to need exact match 0. So I close parentheses. If I Control-Enter, it gives me NA. We've mashed together columns, so we have to use the keyboard shortcut Control-Shift-Enter. This is an array formula. So there's our 13. We copy this over. But let's go check this out. So here's our CHOOSE. 1, 2, because it's going to mash together 2 columns. When I hit F9, let's compare this to what we saw in the match. There's our concatenated value. That's the first column. But notice it's followed by a comma, which means column in array syntax. So it means first item in the column, second item is the min. Semicolon, go down to the next row. Next mash together 4-way lookup, comma, go up and get the min, semicolon, down to the next row. So it's a very clever way of using CHOOSE to get a 2-column VLOOKUP table. All right, I'm going to just click Escape. So now let's go ahead and test all of these. I'm going to click Solar World. I'm going to click the 210, 240. Notice we adjusted these formulas up here. You'd have to either add, oh, actually, let's do adjust this. Let's use the 2007 if error, right? So if error allows you to run just the lookup just once and then come to the end, comma, double quote. Right, and I'll let you change that one there if you want. But so we have our 210, our PVP, and our 240. And so it looks like they're all working. Well, not that one. Oh, that's tricky. I forgot to Control-Shift-Enter. There we go, Control-Shift-Enter, copy it over. All right, so there's 4 lookup items. If you're doing a number, just use the SUMIFS. If you can have an extra column over in the database, totally awesome. That is the way to go. Otherwise, if you don't, you have index and match with match together columns or VLOOKUP and CHOOSE. All of these assumes there are no duplicates. Let's go over and see what happens if there are duplicates. I'm going to close this, maybe scroll this up here. Okay, in our situation here, I actually reduced it down to 2 instead of 4. But just imagine that there were 4. You'd string it together just like we did the last time with ampersands. But here's our situation. We have WA, ABC, and we need to return both product and price in a little table. Now I'm going to use the index function. However, there is we can't just use a straight match because we don't have just one row number. We have 2. So no problem. We'll start off with index. Whoops. Equals index. Now the array, that's the easy part. I want to return product and then price as I copy this way. So I highlight that. F4 twice, lock the row reference. So as I copy down, it's locked, but it's not as I move over to price. That's the easy part, comma. Row number, well, we need a 1 and a 3. So we can't just use match. We'll use small. Because we have multiple row numbers and we want to extract the first smallest, the second smallest, which means 1 and 2. So inside the small, we'll create an array with the if. And here's where we will join. F4. I don't think I still have, oh, I still do have it. Control V, join those 2 columns, F4. And you say anytime those are equal to this one locked in all directions, Control V. And then this one locked in all directions. Right, that's the first logical test. It'll deliver a true position 1 and 3. So comma, what do we want? Well, we need row numbers. So I'm going to say row. And you pick whichever one you want inside the table, F4. That's not going to work because it'll give me 2, 3, 4. So I'm going to subtract row from it, F4. That'll give me 2 minus 2, which is 0. So you add 1 back in. All right, so that's the value of true. We don't need a value of false, so close parentheses. Now, this little thing right here, if I hit F9 key, beautiful. It's got the 1 and 3 inside the small. Control Z. So now all we need to do is have a number incrementer for our K. That will be rows. And I'm sitting in cell F6, so I'm going to type $6:F6. Remember back when we did our columns a couple formulas ago, we locked the letter. Now here we're locking the row because we want it to increment as we go down. That's the K. It'll give us 1, 2 as we go down. Close parentheses. That's the row number. This whole little small is the row number. If I hit F9, you can see it's 1 in this row. Control Z. Now I close parentheses on the index. Control Shift Enter. That is an array format since we're concatenating columns. Copy it over and down. So it looks like it's got the right records. We want to use IFERROR again. And comma, double quote. So if that's an error, it'll put a double quote, Control Shift Enter. Double click and send it down. If we change this to CA, we should get our appropriate multiple, since we have duplicates here, it'll return multiple items. One last thing, if we look at this formula works in 2007 or later because we used the if error. Obviously, if you wanted to do this dupe thing in 2003 or before, you'd use is, error, and if, and list that little lookup piece twice, as we saw earlier. But in 2010, we can avoid the Control Shift Enter. You see the curly brackets up there. that was an array formula by using the aggregate. So this formula works in 2010 only, does not require Control-Shift-Enter, and it can handle arrays. Wow, that was a lot in one video. Multiple lookup items when we want to return duplicate items. And then back here we saw 4 great methods for a 4-way lookup. All right, see you next video.